you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he had sat down, his disciples came to him. He began to teach them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the clean of heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when they insult you and persecute you and utter every kind of evil against you falsely because of me. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward will be great in heaven." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord. For today's celebration, moving on to the gospel. Okay, now I get that stuff out of the way. All right, so today we hear from Matthew chapter 5, 1 through 12. These are the Beatitudes. Beatitude, blessing. Another word for this is happy. And so this is where we can replace those words, the blessed, 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 with happy, 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 happy. Okay, this is where, the people who are listening to Jesus, this would have resonated with them immediately. It's like, what do you mean we can be happy? Right? I mean, the life that they lived was one where it was just misery. And they were peasant farmers. They were pretty much slaves to the land. They made little to no money. And they literally lived at a level that was just without hope. And so here comes Jesus. And of course, the crowd gathers and he sits down, his disciples come to him, and he starts to teach him. He says, happy are those, happy are those, happy are those. And so this is something that should resonate with us today as well, is that the purpose of the celebration of all saints, and every 7th or 8th year, every 8th year or whatever, 7th year, it falls on a Sunday. And so then we get to celebrate the all the saints. Well, who are all the saints? They're not really the known saints that have a calendar date, so to speak, like St. Thomas Aquinas and St. Isaac Jogues, etc., and St. Francis of Assisi. Those are all the known saints. Today's celebration is about calling upon all of the unknown saints, those who've gone before us who had entered heaven, maybe some of your loved ones, those who've died before us and have gone to heaven. They're considered saints in the sense that they are holy, because they're in heaven. So once you're in heaven, you're considered a saint. Once you're in heaven, we also have an extra intercessor for us. If we're paying attention to the opening prayer, grant us an abundance. I got to get it right here. So we're praying, the opening prayer, bestow on us, we pray, through the prayers of so many intercessors. That's all the saints, all the people in heaven, an abundance of the reconciliation with you for which we earnestly long. Okay, this, of course, helps us understand what happiness is. What do we truly, truly desire for ourselves? What do we want? We want to be reconciled with God. We may not put it in those terms, but when we feel the best about ourselves and we feel the best about our world and God's creation and other human beings, it's because we're reconciled with God. And we might say, well, we're reconciled with God. I'm reconciled with God. Well, if you go to confession on a regular basis every month or so, you're probably reconciled with God in that sense. But then what else is there? There always seems to be something else. There's still something that's not quite satisfied in us. I can be reconciled with God. I can go to church on Sundays. I can be in good relationship with God, but there's still something else that doesn't seem to be settled. And what is that? Yeah, that's that longing to be happy. It's that longing to be completely in union with God. That's what we're waiting for. And so when we celebrate the All Saints Day today, we look at all these intercessors. Do you know what the saints are called in heaven? They're known as, and I mentioned this at most baptisms, the treasure chest of heaven. The treasure chest of heaven, because they're like the money that we use to buy us into heaven, if you will. All right? We ask them to pray for us. They pray us into heaven. They pray us into heaven. We have to ask for their intercession. We got a big election coming up here on Tuesday, right? Yeah. Okay. So, call upon all the saints. Call upon all the saints to intercede for us, for our country, for our world. We don't know what God's plans are. But when we look at these Beatitudes, we can look at that first one. Jesus starts with that one. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. What does that mean? Well, one, it's present tense. There's only another one there that's present tense. All the other rewards are later for all the other Beatitudes, but that one and those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, those are the ones who are present tense. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven right now. What does spiritual poverty mean? We know what persecuted for the sake of righteousness is. We know how that feels. We have to realize that when that happens, we know and God knows that if we're doing the right thing and we're suffering for it, it's okay. Because we're going to be at peace knowing that we suffer the same way Jesus Christ does. And our reward awaits us. But there's also something else that happens. Our reward is actually present, in the sense that there's this abiding peace. When people suffer for doing what's right, is it difficult? Yes, it's difficult. Is it considered bad? Yeah, it's considered bad. But there's something that happens in that mystery of suffering. You become unionized with God himself. And you should be doing a lot worse than you are. And that's where the mystery starts to come in, is that it's like, but I'm doing what's right. My conscience is clear. Even though I suffer for it, it will be a noble cause to die for. And so here is that one. We kind of understand that one readily. What about spiritual poverty, the one he begins with? Blessed are the poor in spirit. This is a little bit difficult. You could say it's humility. What's humility built upon? Humility is built upon the recognition that I got nothing, to put it bluntly. I can't do anything without God. That's what spiritual poverty, or this is what humility is built upon, the virtue of humility, is that it realizes and understands I can't do anything without God. And because of that, I'm poor and beggarly and weak. And to recognize that and then live from that means I live in a total surrender to God. A total surrender. What does that mean? You know all those plans and ideas and agendas we have for our lives? We got all these ideas for lives. I was thinking about this morning, what I planned for my life long ago. Wasn't this? All right. Definitely wasn't this. and we have all these plans. And what spiritual poverty does is it recognizes that I have to surrender everything to God. That all those plans I have, well, I'd like to be doing that in 5 years. I'd like to have that in 10 years. But we have to back off and go, but Lord, you guide me. I surrender everything to you. And to be able to live like that, that's the difficult part. To be able to live in complete surrender to the Lord, come what may, this is the difficulty. But that's spiritual poverty, and that's why the kingdom of heaven is theirs now. That's the present reward. We don't even really realize what that means. What does it mean, Father, to have this kingdom of heaven now? It's an indescribable peace within yourself. You sleep well at night. You know, I got a mother she's never sleeping well. You know, she always complains she's got pain, all this other stuff, arthritis. She's old. Okay, all right. So not that she's a sinner. I mean, she's a sinner anyway, but that's not the point. Okay, but I still love my mom. Okay. All right, but the point is that she doesn't have this she has trouble sleeping at night. I think of her as like it really is difficult. Life is very difficult when you have trouble sleeping at night. And we hope it's just because of, physical pain or something like that, and it was something that can be cured and healed. But when you're not sleeping at night because you're worried or you're anxious or you're trying to control too many things, now we got a different kind of problem. We haven't surrendered. We haven't become spiritually impoverished. We haven't allowed God himself to be our strength. We are like shrugging our shoulder going, I got this, God. I'm doing it myself. We don't have to do anything ourselves. God is always here to help us. So when we look at this coming Tuesday, ask the saints, pray for peace, first of all. We don't want any violence. We don't want any harm to come to anybody. And we also want God's will to prevail. We always seek God's will. This is part of being spiritually poor. Is to sit there and go, do I really want God's will? Well, I can be honest and go, well, most of the time I don't want God's will. I want my will. If I was really being honest, I'd say most of the time I want God's will. But sometimes, I want my will. But we need to be honest with ourselves. So we look at this entire celebration and we forget about the beauty of the Mass as well. I can't stop without saying something about the Mass. All right? What's happening here is what's happening in heaven. There used to be those old churches that were made and they used to put those things above the altar or sanctuary. Here is the gate of heaven and something else, I can't remember. But the gate of heaven is here. And what's happening through the priest is that Jesus is offering himself on behalf of you through this priest, which is Jesus, to the Father. All right, this is happening. And who's watching? All the saints, all the angels. Okay, this happens at every Mass. This is the amazing mystery of our faith. It's like, no, we just come into this building and we sit down and we watch the priest do his thing up there, kind of like a clown show, but a little bit different. All right? No, I mean, that's what I thought growing up, And I learned my catechism in seminary. Okay, all right. So we need to realize there's much more going on than just what's going on with you physically. All right, there's this amazing heavenly activity going on, and all the saints are in awe, and all the angels are in awe when this bread over here on the altar becomes Jesus Christ, body, blood, soul, and divinity. And so we realize that all the saints are present for this. All of heaven is open wide for us. Then now is a time to call upon the saints. But all the time, but especially when we enter this gate of heaven, we have to realize that we are surrounded by this cloud of witnesses.